What's up my beautiful creators out there? I'm Sephores and today we're talking slow motion. How to shoot it, how to fake it, and how to stabilize it. So you better stay tuned. So, if we want to talk slow motion, we gotta talk frame rates. Our human eye is capable of seeing 24 frames a second. That means there are like 24 little pictures every second we look. So everything that moves, everything that we see is based on 24 frames a second. That's why also Hollywood movies and the video you're watching right now is filmed at 24 frames a second. But if we want to go slow motion, we gotta go higher frame rates. And not to play it at the normal speed, because that looks weird and our eye can perceive every frame, but to slow it down. If we go, for example, 50 frames a second, we slow it down 52%, which makes again the 24 frames a second, but our clip goes at half the speed, and that's slow motion. So slow motion is higher frame rates, which we slow down towards 24 frames a second. And the higher the frame rate, the slower your footage goes. So, for example, my camera only takes 50 frames a second. But you also have cameras who take 60 frames, 120 frames, or 240 frames. Like your iPhone, for example. That makes super slow motion. That's why everything goes really slow. And that's how we make slow motion. Let's talk some more camera settings. If we set our frame rate to 24 frames a second, the best and most normal looking motion is if we set our shutter speed to 50 frames a second. If you go higher than that, everything looks rushed and there's a little bit more blur in there. And that's what we don't want, because that's not what our human eye is used to. So if we go 50 frames a second, we gotta set our shutter speed at 100 frames. So the basic rule is double your frame rate in shutter speed. That's when you get the most natural looking motion. Okay, to show you guys how to film and how to adjust your frame rates, I'm filming on my iPhone right now. So if you go to the menu at Canon, you go towards the film settings, the movie record size, and you click it. Then you see 920, 1280 and 640. Those are the quality. So if you go 920, that's 1080p. That means that you're filming in HD. If you go lower than that, for example this one, the 720, 50 frames a second, that means you're filming at a lower quality, but you get more frames a second. So that's a sacrifice you can make, and later in post you can scale it up. So if you want to go slow motion, you select the 50 frames a second. When you go back towards your filming, you now gotta set your shutter speed. It's in the bottom corner here, there. You gotta set it to 100, because that's the double of the 50 frames a second. But what if your footage is still too bright or too dark? You only got two options left. You got your ISO and your aperture. If we talk ISO, you want that as low as possible, because that gives you as little as possible noise in your footage. That's like the grainy stuff you see in your footage. But it's not always possible. If you are in a very dark situation, you sometimes have to pop up your ISO. Your aperture, that's the depth of field. If you set it very low, you get a blurry background and your picture gets lighter. Whereas if you set it very high, your background gets sharper, but also your picture gets darker. So that's the two options we have left to set the brightness of our footage. So now we know how to film slow motion and we got all our camera settings tackled. So let's now head over to Premiere and show you guys how to edit the slow motion footage. How to fake it if you accidentally filmed at 24 frames a second while you wanted it in slow motion, and how to stabilize this footage. So I've opened up Premiere Pro and I already selected a couple of clips for you. The first clip is a clip filmed in 50 frames a second. This is what it looks like. It's a little shaky and it's more frames in the footage than we can see. So to make it slow motion, we go right click on the clip, go to speed duration, and we gotta play it at 48% to get the 24 frames per second again. So if you play it back then, it looks like this. It's already a lot cooler, right? So, to show you guys what higher frame rates do, I also filmed in 120 and 240 frames per second on my iPhone. So this is what 120 frames per second looks like normally, and if you slow it down, we gotta slow it down to 20% to get back to the 24 frames per second, and then it look like this. So it's way slower even than the 50 frames per second. It's a lot of noise though. It's a lot of grain, and that's the same effect you get if you film with your high ISO. The next clip is 240 frames. It looks like this. It feels a little bit unnatural until we go and to do the speed duration again, 10% to go back to the 24 frames per second, and then it looks like this. It's ultra slow motion. So it looks pretty good. This is, by the way, my pouch where I keep all my spare batteries and SD cards. So that's how you do slow motion basically. However, if you look at my first clip, it's the best quality. However, it's a little shaky because it didn't have any stabilizers on me today. So how do we get it stable? If we go to the effects panel, right there, and we type in search for warp, you get the warp stabilizer. If you put it on, however, it gives an error. So go to your clip, go to effects control, and remove the warp stabilizer. First, right click on the clip and go to nest. It makes now a new sequence of your video. And now you can put the warp stabilizer on the clip. Now it's analyzing the background, and eventually it will crop the shot a little bit so we get a stabilized shot. So I skip ahead to when it's finished. So now it's stabilizing the footage, and it cropped the footage a little bit, and let's see what it looks like right now. Way better, right? So the last thing we're gonna do today is look what happens if you film the clip at 24 frames per second instead of a higher frame rate. This is what the clips look right now. It's okay, but it'll be better in slow motion. Let's right click and go to speed duration and type in 50%. If you look at it now, it's really ugly. Because what Premiere Pro does, he copies every frame and makes it double. Because now we need 48 frames and we only have 24. So it doubles every frame. So you see 2 frames the same thing, and then the next two. So it looks a little edgy. That's not what we want. So to change that and make it better, we right click on the clip, go to time interpolation and go to optical flow. If you look at it now, it looks a lot better. Because what Premiere does now, it takes the frame before and the frame after and calculates what should be in between. And he puts that in between. So he makes a new frame. So we get all unique frames in the clip. Just like you would have as you filmed it at a higher frame rate. So, but there are some disadvantages to that. Because if you got a really busy background, a lot of stuff happening, it's really hard for Premiere to guess what should be in between. So you can have a tree that all of a sudden becomes double, or lots of weird stuff happening. So if you do this, the best thing is if you got a clean background, but that's not always possible. So we want to film at higher frame rates to get the best results for slow motion. So I hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial and learned something today. If you're gonna make your own slow-mo clips, please send them to me, because I want to see what you guys create. I got my links to Twitter and Instagram down below, and please send them to me. And if you like this video, hit the like button and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more tutorials and vlogs in the future. As for now, I see you in the next video. See you next week.